خصوصا
أنه سمع أنهم فرقة.
Wahhabis are the followers of Maulana Abdul Wahab Sahib, who was a religious leader in the Saudi Arabia, which was not Saudi Arabia then, but he was a religious leader of who was highly respected in the region of Hijaz for his special campaign against idolatry and his emphasis on the unity of God. So, as such, he rendered great service to the cause of Islam, and some people believed him to be a mujaddid of his time. So his progeny gradually became the official religious representative of Saudi Arabia, and the progeny of another political leader of that time became the political custodian of politics in Saudi Arabia. So up till now there is a sort of unwritten law, a traditional law, which divides religious affairs and political affairs in Saudi Arabia. The religious affairs belong to all the affairs of religion and the matters of importance in religious affairs are as though the territory of Maulana Abdul Wahab's progeny, and all the great ulama are from this progeny. Religious matters are decided by the progeny of Maulana Abdul Wahab Sahib. And the other branch, which is political, is the progeny of King Abdul Aziz, Kamil Faisal, etc., etc. So this is the overall division in Saudi. As far as the Wahabi religion is concerned, it became a sect later on. In the beginning, it was his individual effort. He did not create any sect. It was his genuine, sincere services to the cause of unity of God, which won him great fame, particularly in that area. Later on, this was institutionalized. His efforts were institutionalized, and a firqa was born out of that, which is referred to by the outside world as firqa Wahabiyya. A time came when the firqa Wahabiyya exaggerated their emphasis on the unity to the extent that all the graves were leveled by the orders of the then government of Saudi under the influence of the mullahs, Wahabi mullahs. And they were completely erased. All the khatabas, etc., those tombstones were also broken and destroyed. And they said people, when they read the names of the people, they are overawed by their memories and begin to associate them with God. I mean, this was something which was wrong, which was false, but many important grave of great Muslim scholars and saints were completely erased. No signs are left. And as such, they went to this extreme so much that ultimately during the debates between the Wahhabis and the non-Wahhabis, the Wahhabis started taking, at least in India, that much I know, taking a stance which was insulting to Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the sense that those who believed that Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given the power of omniscience, of knowing everything by God, they are called Barelvis, and there are many other, not Barelvis alone, many other sects in Islam in India who believe that Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam's knowledge, though not as great as God's, but shared some of its aspects. He knew about the future, he knew even to detail as to what was happening today in every home and so on and so forth. So this was one end of the exaggeration. On the other, the Wahabis said that the knowledge of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was even less than Satan. God forbid, imagine the verb, the expressions used. So insulting. Said he was just a man. And they misquoted the verse of the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَٰهُكُمْ إِلَٰهٌ وَاحِدٌ. And they said, بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is no more than a bashar like us. While they don't read the remaining part, بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَٰهُكُمْ إِلَٰهٌ وَاحِدٌ. A bashar who is recipient of wahi. And that makes the difference, you see. So instead of reading the full verse and interpreting it correctly, they overemphasize the expression, the word bashar. So I can't quote the language which they have used. It's so insulting, so hurting to read that language which emphasizes the bashariyat in their effort to prove the unity of God. Or must you insult the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to prove the unity of God? You can't separate one from the other, in fact. In the sense that the unity of God was established by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like it was established by no other prophet of God. So he was closest to him. How could he be a bashar like us? They don't understand the meaning of that verse. It only means that despite the fact that as far as the human attributes, human capacity is concerned, he was provided with the same faculties as you have been fed. Yet he rose to such heights. Yet he became the beloved of God, and he became the recipient of wahi like no other prophet was ever made the recipient of wahi before him. So this is Wahabi firqa, which lies on the extreme end of the spectrum of Muslim sects. By overemphasizing the unity of God, they have started using insulting language. They say not with intentions, of course, but in reality insulting language against the status of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in their history they have, as I have done, as I have explained, they have wiped out all the traces of old people's, saintly people's burial grounds, and sometimes they dug the dead out and insulted them to prove that they believe in unity. So extremism cannot be accommodated in Islam. That is the message. So whatever they heard in Togo, I don't know, but as I know Wahabism and its basic features, I have explained that. Will that be sufficient? Right?
Translation. Question. هذا السؤال من الأرك. This was a question from Brother Abdul Jabbar from Togo. He said that he wants to know about the Wahabi sect in Islam, especially he heard that there are sects outside the pale of Islam.
There was a time in India, greater India, including Pakistan, when the Wahhabis were the most hated and hunted sect in Islam. That was prior to the Ahmadiyyah. You see, this is the custom, this is a habit, I should say, of all perverted religious leaders, that they must find an object for their hatred. They can't live without one. And they flourish on hatred. So, Ahmadiyyah is not the only Muslim Jamaat which has been chosen, which has been targeted for the hatred of the Mullah. Prior to it, at different stages of history, different sects in Islam have been targeted, though not with the same ferocity, of course. But Shias, Wahhabis and Ibn Brelvis have been targeted for their hatred in Saudi, etc. So in turn they have been doing it. But when it came to the turn of the Wahhabis in India, it was the hatred they generated against them was so intense that it was considered to be an expression which would win Allah's favor if you always said a dog along with any Wahhabi name. So this was made a custom in the ulama. Imagine. Those ulama were also not at all on the sunnah of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this habit of calling somebody bad names is not Islamic. So in their own false imagination, they served the cause of Islam by calling Wahhabis as dogs. So every Wahhabi was referred to by the Indian Muslims, other Indian Muslims, as that kutta. Kutta means dog. That Wahhabi, dog. That Wahhabi, dog. And the hatred was so intense that poor Wahhabis were many times beaten and mauled and sometimes robbed, sometimes even their mosques were burnt. Once it is said that in a village in the Punjab, there was a Muslim shopkeeper, which is a biggish village, and a Muslim shopkeeper as well as a Sikh shopkeeper who had the grocery stores. Now, because the Sikh was more honest and more sensible, so all the population of the village went to his shop for their daily shopping, and he became very rich and very popular. And the Muslim shopkeeper ultimately, was left to a life of hand to mouth. He hardly survived. So he took advice from some mullah. He said, for God's sake, tell me something. The population is Muslim, yet the Sikh shopkeeper is so popular and I am not. So this mullah said, all right, serve me something, serve me this, please me, the halwa and this and that, and I'll give you some good advice. So he served him as much as he could, poor man, and the advice was that during my next khutbah in Jummah, I'm going to announce that Sikh has become Wahabi. Imagine also the state of ignorance of our people. They are being led by noses by such religious leaders as this mullah. And this is what he did. And there was a stir and burr and, sort of visible, audible reaction among the audience. Oh, that Sikh has become a Wahabi? And immediately they boycotted that shop and turned to the Muslim shop. So this is the extent of hatred which the name Wahabi generated in India. But I must warn you that most of the things said about Wahhabis in India were all false. During their debates, of course, they took extreme measures and stupid expressions were also used. But basically they were Muslims, monotheists. They said their prayers like other Muslims. In their views they were moderate, except on this overemphasis on unity at the cost of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is a crime which is punishable, of course, by God. But in the remaining of things which he might have heard, I know from personal experience, any sect which is chosen for hatred, false propaganda is freely carried out against these people and they can't defend themselves.